Welcome back to another episode of Excuse My Grandma. It's Kim and my co-host,
Grandma Gail. Kim, what was doing this week in New York? Because I was in the Hamptons this whole week.
We have to wear masks in my building again to go to the gym or anything like that.
Well, we might have to go back to last winter's mode of apparel.
Yeah.
The mask is going to become a big accessory again, unfortunately, because of this variant, because people are not being vaccinated.
It's just funny because everyone at like bars or parties will be like, COVID's over, ha ha ha.
Well,
and
it's
then
not over. It's not over till the fat lady sings, and it's certainly not singing yet.
Right.
So any fun place that you went to?
Yes, I went on a date to this restaurant that was 7 courses. It was very fancy, very nice.
Oh my gosh, 7 courses.
Yes. And
What was your favorite?
It had actually just opened last month, I think. There was a very good, it was a breakfast taco kind of thing, but it was a Japanese restaurant. So it was...
Japanese take on a taco. I guess.
Yeah, which was very good.
Oh, it sounds delicious. Well, the highlight of my week this week was that I went to 2 places and they were all out of pizza. I never heard of a pizza restaurant that was out of pizza, but they said they can't get enough people to work and make the dough. So they're not making pizza.
That's weird.
I said, well, what are you making? They said, well, we're making pastas, but not pizza dough. I guess maybe it takes too long to cook the dough. They don't want to bother with it. It's too labor intensive. And really, they're having a problem out east here finding people to work in the restaurants. So, and I think the same thing actually is happening in New York as well. So it's pretty amazing.
Yeah. I think we just have food on our mind because of our episode last week with Jeremy Jacobowitz, the food blogger.
I loved him, and I'm sort of looking for the different kinds of places to go to. I haven't found any since out here, especially there's it's not too exciting as far as food menus here.
Well, we'll go to the restaurant he recommended to us in the episode, and we'll let you guys know how it is.
We're going to do a day in Brooklyn. I think we should do a day in Brooklyn, lunch and dinner. And in between, we could just
Grandma
walk
goes
around.
to Brooklyn. It's like Gidget takes Rome.
I think that would be really fun. So let's put that on the calendar for the fall.
So this episode is all about shooting your shot, which basically means...
Not basketball.
No. In dating, it means making a move on someone and giving it a try, even though, you don't know what the outcome is going to be. So I wanted to do an example before getting into the episode with our guests. This guy who sent me a message on Instagram who shot his shot in a way that I have not seen before. He sent a resume, but about his personality. So here, see, it's like a resume, but it's not a work resume.
He thought about it. All right, let's hear what he had to say.
Okay, so he wants to be named for all of you guys because he's really he seems like a really positive, nice person, and he's always looking to meet new people. So his name's Brandon Cohen, and on Instagram it's at BCO04. And this is what he said. So he lives in the East Village in New York City. So he has a pros list and a cons list. For pros, it says, pride myself as being romantic and always caring and thinking about other people's feelings. Silly enough to make a dating resume to try to get the girl. Emotionally available. Passionate about my writing and eager to talk about our respective passions. Still on good terms with everyone I've dated.
Oh, he sounds very nice.
Sounds nice.
Sounds good.
Cons. Silly enough to make a dating resume to try to get the girl. So that's both a pro and a con. If you're looking for a super strong, tough macho man, that is not me. My mom does not like me, but all other moms do. I make TikToks, ironically, though. What do you think of those?
Oh, well, I think he's cute. He sounds cute. I don't know. He sounds a little desperate.
You think
if he's so good, I don't know why he has to
pitch himself in this way.
But maybe this is the way everybody seems to be doing it nowadays. So,
nobody's making an actual resume, but I guess a dating app in a way is a resume, right?
Exactly. And he's very organized, and I think some of the girls should call him up.
This is the funny part to me. Then he has his recent dating experiences with the dates of how long the relationships were.
Well, I don't think we should get too personal.
Right. So do you think maybe that should be taken off the resume because if he's going to send this around, like that's something you want to tell the person like later down the road.
Or that it's really nobody's business about his past dates. You know, he's just, I think he's just available, and that's the bottom line. So he's trying to, he's actually shooting a shot with his resume.
This is so funny. Like he says, so summer relationship is one of the relevant dating experiences. Ended up in a relationship with a girl visiting New York City for the summer from Ireland. It was great. However, we agreed from day one we would end things when she left to go back home, still on great terms.
You know, I don't even know how old he is. He sounds a little immature, but it's, you know, I don't think every date you have to have ends up in a relationship. It was a nice experience for him.
Yeah, I just think it's funny. I mean, would you recommend someone do something like this to shoot their shot, or do you think it's too much?
Well, I think it's almost the same thing as going on Hinge or Bumble or whatever those other dating apps are. It's a similar thing, and maybe he thinks he's going to get more exposure this way.
So yes, anyone who is interested in getting to know Brandon, and clearly he's a creative guy, you can check him out on Instagram at BCO04. And that brings us into our guests for this week, because it's all about shooting your shot. Two ladies who have a podcast of their own called Shooters Gotta Shoot.
I think they're pretty wild. They're fun girls, but I can't quite grasp what their story is. So we'll have to hear it from them.
Well, you were a little rattled that I guess like they're a little bit older than me, but like they're not looking to settle down. Like they're having fun.
I know they are having fun. I guess that's the whole point of their podcast. They just shooters got to shoot. Just go have a good time. If you want to go for a date, go up and ask them. And that's exactly the opposite of what we got from
Sherry Schneider. The
exactly
rules
with the rules, who I sort of agree with. But you know what? There's several different takes on this dating in today's world. So let's get right into what they have to say.
We are joined by the co-hosts of the Shooters Gotta Shoot podcast, Erica Spera and Molly DeMellier. Thank you guys for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks. Excited to be here.
So let's start with where you're from, how old you are, and your current relationship status.
I guess oldest goes first. I'm 30. I forget the second half of the question. I'm from upstate New York. I believe that's what it was. And I'm currently single.
I am a ripe 28, and I'm also from upstate New York and very single.
So where did you two meet?
Technically, I think Ireland. Our families have known each other forever. Erica's dad was my basketball coach when I was like 15, but we weren't actually on the same team. Our dads just became really good friends through that, and so they stayed close. And my dad's a travel agent, so I think it was like we were both almost out. I was going to my senior year of college. Erica was out of college, and my dad was doing a tour to Ireland, and all these families from my hometown went, and Erica's family came along, and we end up actually finally meeting in a bar in Dublin.
Well, thank God for that, because now you started this amazing podcast together. Tell us about how that was like conceived.
Well, in that bar in Ireland, and I go on this trip, and everyone's in a relationship, like except me and Molly. So I walked up to her, and we were in a bar at night, and I just go, "Hey, you're single, right?" And she goes, "Yeah." I was like, "You want to do a lap?"
That's hilarious. So Grandma, a lot of the time, like in a bar, when I do this with friends and everyone does it, like we're like, okay, let's do a lap. And like I can spend my whole night just doing a lap.
What is a lap?
Like you just walk around the room, suss it out. Like who else is like single? Maybe are there any cute guys or girls? Like that's usually how it goes. And sometimes it's just like you don't even stop and actually like chill. You just are constantly like, okay, let's do another lap. Let's do another lap.
Like a horse going into the stable around and around. This is really bad.
Did you guys meet anyone that night? That's
They met each other.
So the podcast is called Shooters Gotta Shoot. Explain to our listeners like what that phrase means.
Well, it's a basketball term. It was something that my dad always said to me, because I was a 3-point shooter, and I would always get in my head, and when my shot would go cold and I would stop shooting. And so he would say to me, he was like, well, really, like, you can't do anything else. So, like, they're not going to put you on the court. Like, a shooter's got to shoot. You got to go through every miss because you're going to eventually make it. And so then, you know, just being former athletes, whenever we would want to, like, egg each other on or, like, give the other person confidence to go talk to a guy or really do anything, you know, take a big risk, Erica and I would just say to each other, well, shooter's got to shoot. So then it just, it fit great for the show.
Yeah. Or it also applies to when, you know, Molly will be like, I kind of want to DM this guy. Should I? And I'm like, shooter's got to shoot, which just means even if I say you shouldn't, you're going to do it anyway.
And you miss 100% of the shots you don't take.
Yes.
Exactly.
So I'd say that and combination of like, I mean, grandma will know. I bet back in your day, they were like, never initiate with a man, right? The man's got to do the pursuing, all of that. And it's still to this day, all the advice for women typically says that. And we're like, you know what? We're like, you can initiate and get out there and make something happen. So.
Well, it was interesting because we just had
the author of the rules,
Correct.
like Sherry Schneider.
You had
and I know
her
you guys
on?
have, yeah.
God.
and she was great, but she was really very good. Of course, I happen to agree with her. So you're on the other flip side of it. And I think what happens in a lot of things, the girls today are intimidating for the men. So it's very hard for the guys to really step up to the plate because the girls are doing the stepping. So I'm not sure I sort of I'm on the same page as you guys in this. So
Funny,
you got to
her
talk to Kimmy. You got to talk to Kimmy.
Well,
on
I'm
this.
still undecided. Like, I could be swayed either way. I don't know which one is more effective. Like, do you guys have testimonials to when shooting your shot has actually worked out, like, effectively?
Yeah.
Yeah. A good DM slide works every time. I love a move on Instagram when you see that a guy is out or like doing something and you reply to his story. And like, especially like if I'm out too, like I go out drinking a lot. So I'll see that someone is at a bar in an area, might not even be that close to where I am, but I'll say that it is. And then all of a sudden you end up having a conversation and, you know, they might end up at your bar, or, you know, get the invite to go over to where they are. I feel like 9 times out of 10, it works pretty well.
But does it work to become a relationship?
That's what I was going to say.
No.
I mean, I understand that it's working. It's working to have a drink and perhaps hooking up, but it is not working to have a long-term relationship where you're sitting down and having breakfast together.
No.
No, that's what I was afraid of.
Yeah, I would say my relationships, the guys have pursued me. But I will say, I feel like in my relationships that I've had, I've been not really myself. Like I've been a lot more just like quiet and docile. And then I kind of get to this point where I'm like, oh, they don't really know the like funny, outgoing side of me because they were the one who initiated all of this and they kind of see themselves as more of the dominant person. And then we get to this point in the relationship where like I'll say something or like I'll be out with friends and they're like, oh, like you're actually like really funny. I'm like, thanks.
Well, somebody will get you. Somebody will eventually get you and think you're very funny. Don't worry.
Thank you. I hope.
But that's kind of what our whole podcast is about, is trying to find the balance of like, look, in order to meet people, whether it is to date or hook up with, but mostly like to date, it's like, okay, well, you can't complain you're not meeting anybody if like you're not going out and doing things. Mm-hmm. Like you can't be staying in and having like wine night with your girlfriends all the time saying, how come I haven't met anybody? So it kind of is this weird balance of like, I do think you can initiate and it turns into a relationship, but it's an art of like, how do you just open the door and let someone know you're interested?
Exactly. And that's the hard thing because it's like, okay, fine. I won't stay in with my girlfriends tonight. I'll go to a bar and I'll stand there and like make eye contact with every guy hoping that someone's going to go over. Do you play that game or do you actually walk up to someone and like start the conversation? Because we've been told a million times like guys like the chase. They want to be the ones going after you. So like where do you draw the line? I don't know if we have the answers, but like I feel like that is a hard one.
Well, I'm curious if your grandma has any moves from back in the day, but I'll give you one. I do think you should say something or do something that can get someone's attention to just look over and see you, because men are visual creatures, let's be real. So it's like, look, if you look cute and a guy looks over and he's like, oh, she's cute, he'll want to talk to you, right? It's that simple. So it's like, there's a move that someone actually told me that they'll be near a crowded bar, and if a guy is like at the bar in front of them, they'll ask him to grab them a napkin. They'll just be like, oh, excuse me, can you just grab me a napkin? And it's like, oh, sure. But it makes them turn towards you. It makes them look at you. And it's also giving them an opportunity to be like, oh, what's your name? Or you could just be like, oh, by the way, I'm Erica. Like, thanks. You know.
That's very good.
I like that. I mean, once you said to me when I asked you were like, just spill a drink on them. And I was like, we're not. And like,
Well, I really don't think there's too much bar scenes in these stories.
okay, do you have an idea of where I can meet someone? Yeah.
You have enough people on your schedule. I'm not worried about you. I'm thinking about the general public. I think. What about going to a church social or a synagogue or a theater club that you would meet people? I mean, the bar scene seems to be, first, half the time, the girls and the guys don't even remember where they were that night. So is that the only place where young people can meet now? I mean, we used to do it by families, hooking up other families. We used to all get together and somehow you'd meet relatives or you'd meet a cousin of somebody and somebody would introduce you. But that seems to be passé. No one seems to be doing that. But there must be organizations where 20, 30-year-olds still can visit and meet people other than a bar. I mean, I think it's so discouraging to have only the bar scene left.
Yeah. I mean, I think if on Saturday night I was going to go to like Temple instead of like, you
might meet a lot of nice people.
I don't know how many people are doing that are like, just because it's on Saturday night, why would you, like that, the norm
they don't
now.
Go Saturday night.
Okay.
They go Friday night. So you've already messed it up.
That's why you're not going to meet anyone.
Saturday night, everybody's finished.
You're like, man, I can never meet anyone on
You're
Saturdays.
bad, Kimmy, today.
I know, no nice Jewish boys for me now. But,
Well,
I don't know. What do you guys think?
Well, I think it's like dates. It's like planning a date. The lazy, easy date is let's get a drink at a bar. So same with what your grandma's saying of like, oh, the most simple way everybody thinks to meet someone is go to a bar because there's people there. But that is actually kind of hard for me because I'm not a big drinker. So I kind of have that thought of like, okay, what if I meet someone in a bar and they like to be in a bar all the time and I don't? So it's like, yeah, you got to look at what are your interests? What do you like doing? Matchmaker Maria gave the great advice of like sign up for meetup events or
That's
like
what I mean.
just
There are other
Eventbrite,
things.
like anything. But what's hard is a lot of times female interests is something as simple as like, Molly and I are into sports, we're into fitness, doing workout classes. You go to workout classes, there's no men there. So that's also kind of where you have a little bit of a struggle. I'm curious, Grandma, what was like one of the best dates you've been on that wasn't like having a drink in the bar then? Like, have you ever
I never
been on
had
any...
a drink in the bar. That was never,
for
ever
a date?
something I did. And I went to college. I had a million dates. We didn't drink in bars. We went to fraternities or sororities. That there were no bar scenes because I was at a dry campus, so we didn't have that. We dated differently. We went to theater. We went for dinner. We actually dated. We went on dates. And I don't think I ever just met somebody for a drink. That was not something you did in the 60s, in the early 60s, maybe in the late 60s, definitely. But you didn't do that. You called up, you asked a girl to go out with you, and if it didn't work, there were many first dates that never became a second date, which is fine. See, I think the problem is the bar scene, you almost don't ever get to the second date because it's really not a first date. It's a nothing. It's a drink, and maybe it's sex. Or maybe it's not sex. I mean, that's sex has become a whole, like Kimmy says to me, it's not important anymore. I still think it's very important. And if you didn't have good sex, you shouldn't go on to get married to the guy, or you shouldn't have a relationship with him. That was it.
About the bar scene, I was actually talking to Jared Fried about this. And we were both saying it can be tough because like we both drink a lot. And so when you're on a date and you're drinking a lot, it just seems like it's a lot of fun. And then you go back and you're like, am I just a good time when I'm drunk? Right. Like, I was like, yeah, if I have 3 drinks, I clean my apartment and I have a blast. Like, right. I don't know if this person is fun. So I think that's the other thing that it makes everything seem a little bit better than it actually is. And so then when it doesn't work out, you're like, well, we had such a great time. It's like, no, you were drunk. Like, there was nothing really there. So I think that can also make it really challenging.
Mm-hmm. Like sometimes you say that even with not with drinking, you're like, I think you're remembering like all the fun dates you went on. Like you played golf, you went to the beach, you whatever it was. Like you don't think about the person sometimes, you just think about like the times you had. But like you can.
No, but it was all wrapped up in one. You wouldn't have gone on a date with somebody and spent 4 hours with somebody usually.
unless you enjoyed their company. I think where it became, you do? You
So
spend
I think sometimes I'm like, you go on a date with someone and then you're stuck and then it's 4 hours later.
yeah, well, that's a
That'll
first date.
happen. Yeah.
But then you wouldn't do a second date with that person.
No,
if
because
you
what
were-
if, like, I feel like I have, because I'll do a first date with someone that's like an hour. I'm like, they're fine. And then the
Right.
second date, it's like 4 hours. And I'm like,
All right, so then that's
No.
enough. Then they don't get the third date rule.
yeah, I guess.
Is that when you think women should wait, Grandma?
Yeah, I
So
think
the third
everybody
date?
has. Oh no, much
No.
more than the third date.
Okay.
But I think you
I
have
was
to.
like,
at
that's not
least
being
give,
a rules girl, Grandma.
Oh no, yeah, mine is a whole different rule. Mine was a ring on the finger. I think you have to have at least 3 dates before you judge somebody. Because I think sometimes the first date you're both nervous, and the second date you're sort of feeling the waters, and the third date you usually start to see somebody in the right way or in the wrong way. And if it's not for you, then you say, you know what, you're a nice person, but it doesn't work for us. But you have to give somebody a few chances, because everybody, I think, especially as you're getting older, everyone's a little tense with the whole dating scene, and I think it's tough out here to really make relationships work. I think you've got jobs, you've got family issues, you have friend issues, and everything becomes much more complicated than it was when I was dating. It was not complicated. It was a very easy process. You either liked him and didn't like him, you got engaged, you got married, and you had a wedding and you had children. So there was a very easy choice. Didn't always work. And I think that's the repercussions that a lot of the young people today are nervous about. They are afraid of failure. They're afraid of commitment. And it becomes another layer of issues.
There's also so many options, like you go on the dating app, and especially in a city like New York, and it's just millions of people. It feels like it's never ending. So it's like, okay, but at what point do you stop dating other people?
That's
And when do you have the conversation? And there's so many little things like that. It's like, I don't want to lock it down just yet, because like, what if something better comes along? And it's really tricky.
She's laughing because
we've discussed this.
I
We've
talk about
discussed
this every day. I don't know. I don't know how to get over the fear of like not missing out. I guess FOMO. Like, how do you get over dating FOMO? I don't know.
I think basically you have to say at some point there's always going to be somebody better down the road. But I'm happy. So this is what I choose to do now. And you make a commitment. I think the hardest thing to do is say, yes, this is it. And it shouldn't be done lightly, but it also shouldn't be torturous. You shouldn't think that there are 400 other guys waiting around the corner or girls waiting around the corner. But it works both ways. I don't think the men want to make the commitment, and I'm, in many cases, don't think the women want to make the commitment. They're always looking for something that's going to be a little better, and it usually isn't better.
Mm-hmm.
Well, a lot of times it's just the basic commitment. It's just the commitment of like not seeing other people. That is kind of the challenge, I think, of our generation. Is it's like, it's not getting dates. It's dating someone and knowing that they are not dating other people, or even just having them call you their girlfriend. Is like
discuss that,
such a
Timmy.
thing.
Bring that up with Eric. What is that thing you tell me that I still don't understand?
We've talked about this so many
I
times.
still don't understand it.
That you can be exclusive with someone, but not like boyfriend and girlfriend. Like a lot of the time.
How does that happen? I don't understand how
I
you can
mean-
be exclusive and not be boyfriend and girlfriend.
It's a young woman's game. I've made that mistake before in the past a couple times, and it's like I'm finally like, okay, no, I think it's bullshit. To me, it's the same thing. So it's like if some guy wants to be like exclusive, I'm like, oh, what does that mean? Does that mean I'm your girlfriend? If they say no, I'm like, well, then we're not exclusive.
Yeah,
like
right.
I don't
Okay.
like play dumb. Like I don't understand
Yeah.
the difference because
Thank you. Thank you.
for most men, it's just that they don't have to use condoms. It's really
Oh
what
no!
they're
They
trying
gotta
to
use
get.
condoms. They gotta use condoms. We're not
Yeah.
fooling around here. We're not looking to get pregnant like they did when I was young.
Or get an STI or STD. Like Erica can speak to that as well. But it's like you don't want to make like a dumb decision just because someone doesn't want to like
Use protection.
Yeah.
That's nonsense. Then goodbye and good luck.
No, I was just gonna say the worst is when like you're seeing someone and then just you get to that point of contention and they won't use one, but you're like, I know you're sleeping with other people, and it's just like, but we've done it like so many times, and it gets so frustrating.
Yeah.
But they're not gonna lock it down and stop seeing other people, but it almost feels like you're not
Goodbye.
gonna have sex anymore. Yeah, it's
Goodbye.
It's tough.
Open the door and close the door behind them.
Yeah.
But the
When it
sad
comes-
truth is a lot of people lie. is also the other truth.
Yep.
Whether it's about the last time they got
really?
tested for STIs, STDs, if they have an STI or STD. Sorry, they're the same thing. But also even just if they're seeing other people. I've had that conversation being like, oh, well, are you seeing anyone else? Like, are we exclusively seeing each other? What's the deal? And I've had men tell me yes. And then I found out they were lying.
That's terrible.
So that also like affects your trust on like a basic level. And it just reminds you, you're like, yeah, I guess, do you ever really know? Like,
No, you really don't. Especially, you certainly don't, especially when you're picking up random men from the internet. I mean, it's one thing if you knew them from your hometown, but when you're picking up guys,
Someone from your hometown could have the same thing.
No, but then you know how
like
that
you
you
can trust
would
them
check
more,
them
yeah.
up, that you would know if they were dating somebody else, if they were living in your town, if they're coming in from out of town and all of a sudden they're wildly in love and they're telling you you're
I think
the
you
only
could live
one.
under the same roof as someone and not know.
Well,
what they're
maybe.
up to,
Could be. I don't know.
So basically, don't trust anyone.
No, let's not be that.
no, it's more you have to trust your instincts is what it is.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Your common sense.
Anytime something like that has happened to me, I've always had a gut feeling and like not listened to it, and then later looked back and been like, I knew there was something off. So like yeah, you do have to trust your gut, because like I don't like I think your instincts are usually pretty spot on with that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I like to ask all of our guests this, but like, do you have pressure from your families or your parents or your grandparents about settling down and like starting a family, or not really?
Somewhat. I think there's a lot more pressure they want to put on me, but they are hesitant to put it on me. Like example, I had my mom brought up like freezing eggs, which it was so funny that I heard people joke about it, and I thought it was kind of just a joke. And I'm like, oh no, that's real. Apparently, when you turn 30 as a woman, everyone's concerned about the eggs.
I don't have it as much. I'm kind of a unique situation. I was a pretty like serious oopsie baby. My mom was 40 when I was born, and then also so was my dad. His mom was 40 when he was born, and he has one brother who's 16 years older. So I'm kind of like from this family of just people settling down when they were older. And also I think my mom was 31 when she got married, and
that was old in that time.
it was, yeah. And she had a sister who's like 15 months older than her, and she got married at like 21. So she was kind of that person in her family of like, what you doing? What's going on? And so I think like I've just never really had that pressure. And then also everyone just like, yeah, I think like 40 is probably when I'm going to have kids, and it's going to be fine. So, my dad did it in or my grandma did it in the 50s. And so.
Yeah. I'm very different from my parents. They were married at 23. They're still together. My mom was similar to you, of waited till marriage to have sex. So my dad's the only person she's been with. It's like a very different life. And I knew at a young age, I was like, I'm not going to be you. Like that's not the exact path I will be taking. No offense.
No, she probably is happy you're not taking that path. That's all right.
Right. But that's the thing, is it flips between one minute she's like, I like that you're picky. You should be picky. You deserve someone great. You shouldn't just settle for some guy. And then the next minute she's talking to me about the egg thing. So it's
well,
like,
that's like you're picky, but why are you picking the wrong people? Like,
yeah, it's like
You're not picking the ones I like.
I want to end it on like, if you've ever gotten a piece of advice from a parent or grandparent or parental figure, either about dating or not, that kind of like stuck with you throughout the years that you can share.
I have one about kids specifically that I remembered from my grandmother, actually. She said, when people talk about like whether they want to have kids or they don't, and she said, if you don't have kids, you don't have that joy. Like you don't have that joy in your life of having children. She said, but if you don't have kids, then you don't have that worry. And she's like, you will always, like when you have a kid, you're always going to have joy, but you're also always going to have that worry, even when they're like moved on out of their house. I don't know. What about you, Molly?
I mean, mine was kind of funny. This was like probably like 2 years ago. I was just talking to my mom about dating, and just out of nowhere, she was like, you don't have to sleep with every person you go on a date with.
That's advice.
I don't. Like, I don't know why you thought that. But now every time I go on a date, I'm like, I don't have to sleep with them.
Right, it wasn't relevant, but now it's always in the back of your head.
Yeah. Like, I think about it actually way more often than I
Right.
should. This conversation of like, what does she think I do?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So
Or there's one actually that goes for, I think it's for sex. It's like, sex is only 10% of the relationship. But if the sex is bad or it's off or your sex life is non-existent anymore, then it becomes 90% of your relationship.
That's correct.
So,
That's true.
That's so interesting.
But that is true.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you guys so much for joining us. Tell our listeners how they can listen to your podcast and follow you.
You can find Shooters Gotta Shoot wherever you listen to podcasts. We're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, etc. You can find us on Instagram at Shooters Gotta Shoot Pod, and I'm on Instagram at Sperica with 2 A's.
and I'm at the guaca_Molly.
And thank you so much for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That was a very fun episode. A lot of laughs were shared.
We certainly did laugh.
So let's do our 50s movie of the week.
What do you suggest this week? We have
Um,
to talk about something about going for your shot.
Right. So I was thinking How to Marry a Millionaire, which was 1953.
That was a great movie. That does fit the bill. That's perfect.
Yes, it was Marilyn Monroe, Betty Grable, and Lauren Bacall. And basically 3 women looking for some rich men, some millionaires,
And they're going for their shot.
shooting their shot. They knew what they want. And yeah, hope you guys check it out. Another great episode of Excuse My Grandma. You know how to follow us. Grandma, do you know how to follow us?
Don't make it so difficult. I know how to follow it. I call you up, and then you put me on the podcast, and I understand how to do it.
Subscribe on Spotify, Apple, wherever you listen. It'll come right to your phone. Follow us on Instagram if you have Instagram, or TikTok at Excuse My Grandma. Write in your questions. We want to hear from you. Okay, everyone. See you next week.
Bye.